serious. And anyway, once Descartes corners himself and has so little to work with in terms of third foundation, he's not going to learn. Jung has a very different radically different view. He thinks that that knowledge and the ability to think more fundamentally, the ability to think depends on experience. If you suspend all your beliefs about experience, one cannot think. So all that Descartes does is a future, kind of thought experiment. Because if you really suspended all his belief, you wouldn't be able to think it. If you cannot think, you cannot see what is the certain foundation of. So he says, nothing is more useful than for writer, even on moral, political, or physical subject, to distinguish between reason and experience, and to suppose that these pieces of argumentation are entirely different from each other. So, for the rationalists, especially, there is this kind of sharp distinction between reason and experience. Okay? Think about Zeno. Reason sometimes can actually overrule experience. If you want, in Descartes, the innate judgment of the mind goes also above and beyond, in some sense, experience. But Hume says the former argument from reason are taken for mere results of our intellectual faculty, which by considering a priori the nature of things and examining the effects that must follow from their operation, establish particular principles of science and philosophy. So the rationalists, just by thought, a priori thought, experiments like Descartes, are supposed to come up with the principle of reality. And in the case of Descartes, the principle of knowledge. But Hume thinks that that's not the case. The latter are supposed to be derived entirely from sense observation, by which we learn that has actually resulted from the operation of a particular object, and are thence able to infer what will for the future result from. So this is so Hume talks here about, on the one hand, the a priori reasoning that is independent of experience, and then there are the beliefs about experience. And the rationalists make sharp distinction. But Hume think that there doesn't exist such a sharp distinction. By notwithstanding that this distinction is thus universally received. So a lot of philosophers, a lot of people think that there is a sharp distinction between reason and experience. Both in the active and speculative sense of life, when we think about science or life in general, I shall not scruple to pronounce that it is at bottom erroneous, at least superficial. So basically what Hume is saying, the sharp distinction between reason and experience is false, or if you don't want to say false, is superficial. Why superficial? Because reason is also based on experience. So to say that there is a sharp distinction between reason and experience is to forget the foundation of reason. Foundation of reason and experience. One cannot think without experience. Meaning that the ability to think is based on knowledge, in a sense, of beliefs about the world. Experiencing and being exposed to the world. That's very important. So far we saw two things about human. One, that in a sense human beings are dogmatic. They are not really capable or kind of the skepticism that Descartes seems like to be open-minded, question everything. But Hume thinks that that's not serious. We are not capable of doing that. We can say that we are doing that, but it's one thing to say and another actually to be able to do it. And the other thing is that he thinks that the ability to think, not the knowledge and the content of the thought, the ability to think is based on experience. So therefore Descartes could not even start his meditation according to you. He starts in the wrong place. Now I think if reason depends on experience, it means that people with different experience have different reason. That's the implication of Hume, which is very different from Descartes. If you think that humans have this reason by innateness, it means that all of us are pretty much the same independently of the culture and the way we were raised and the experiences and so on. For Hume, it's the opposite. For Hume, people with very different experience think differently, reason differently, and so on. Yes. Yeah, well, Descartes thinks that the foundation of knowledge about the external world is experience, but he thinks that we have the faculty of thinking independently of the content of experience and beliefs. Okay, so when we suspend all beliefs in the meditation, we still think with reason. Our reason, the capacity of reason has not changed. We just shrink the set of belief that we have, or we consider at the moment. For you, by shrinking beliefs, you shrink reason. The mind is like empty, he says, tabula rasa. I mean, people, the mind is like empty, and in order to be able to start to think, to have connection, to judge what is relevant and what is not, you need already to have beliefs.
So is Hume like Herder? Does he believe that there's no universal capacity to reason, that each person sort of reasons to their own culture?
Yeah, I mean, there is, Hume doesn't deny that, you know, biologically, human beings are very, very similar. We look different, but actually when you look at the genetic, I mean, it's almost identical. So he doesn't deny that. But on the basis of this biological and some physical capacities, there is experience. So obviously we have some tendency that are similar. But then the way our experience, I mean, someone who is born and live in the city all his life, or her life, would reason differently from someone who is all the time in the suburbs. Never been in the center of the city. You know, for instance, the person from the suburbs will see the city as something confusing, you know, maybe dangerous or something like that, and the person from the city would have the opposite, I mean, experience. It's not by chance that something like that. It's very much according to, I mean, you think that it's very much in line with this philosophy.
But what would Hume say about, say, infants? Wasn't Hume said that they are like infants?
Well, the infant says they have these positions, but they don't think yet in the same way when they're born. I mean, they have the capacity to develop, I mean, thoughts when they are exposed to experience. But you would say, you know, the baby doesn't know like the difference and doesn't know to connect things. It takes, I mean, some time, you know, some indoctrination. You know, say, this is a ball, or something like that. And after a while, I mean, the baby gets it. I mean, it's kind of magic. We don't know, we don't understand exactly how it happens. But at the beginning, you know, you say this ball, I mean, the baby doesn't know whether it's ball, whether it's round, whether it's color, whether it's, you know, something, pay attention. I mean, it takes time to develop this capacity to make judgment of relevance. Judgment of relevance are the basis of our reason. Someone who cannot do judgment of relevance is considered someone who has problem with reason. Yeah. Yeah, we have instincts. We have instincts that are biologically based. And but then we develop also cultural instincts, if you want. So the cultural instinct could vary from one to, you know, for instance, it's easier for us to identify things that we are used to. It's difficult for us to make change. We have to struggle, you know. It irritates us. Yeah, it does irritate us. We tend to have prejudices. For you, I mean, that's natural. Prejudices is custom and habit of the mind. We're indoctrinated in a certain way, it's like the first thing you do. The instinct is to jump to conclusion. You have actually to think. You have to refine your reason and to think, no, it's not right to discriminate on this basis or that basis. But the tendency, according to Hume, is to do that. Because that's the way we are indoctrinated by experience. Okay? So that's very, very different from Descartes. Descartes assumes that these things will be intellectual. For Hume, they're much less intellectual. The reason is based on something much more automatic that is experience. Once you have this experience, you can talk about reason. Before, there is no reason. Okay, that's really, really important. We are, for you, we are creature of custom and habit. The custom of habit and the mind is the basis for our thoughts. We connect things because of our experience. Okay? Now, Hume used the problem of justifying induction, which has become very famous, in order actually to make his point, to show that his philosophy of knowledge and human nature, see, I mean, knowledge for Hume comes from human nature. It's connected directly to human nature. So he will try to show us by looking at the problem, the attempt to justify induction, inductive reasoning, we'll see in a moment. What is inductive reasoning? He will try to convince us that this is the right way of knowledge, the right way to look at knowledge and human nature. Once you accept this view, there are far-reaching implications for this view. For instance, I mean, one of the implications is that it's normal to be dogmatic and it's normal to have prejudices. So one has to think about it. And once, actually, when we try to, think about how to shape our society, we have to take it into account. Okay, this is human nature. Okay, so we will have a break now, but in order to understand Hume, we have to understand what is deductive reasoning and what is inductive reasoning, what's the difference between them. And once we do that, we can go back to this, to Hume's view about knowledge and human nature. So let's have 10 minutes break.